So you've been actually on the promotional bandwagon. Where have you been in the last week?
I was in, I just came from San Francisco. I was up at Skywalker Ranch, and we screened it for some folks there, which was fun. And San Francisco, right before that, I was in Paris. It's a rough life, Steve, let me tell you. But we've been all over. We've been to Philly, Denver, Chicago, Toronto, Austin. We've been touring around and showing the movie. It's been really, really fun.
Before we go any further, I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone for coming out tonight to see the movie early.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for being here.
A huge thank you to Lionsgate for letting us screen the movie early. A huge thank you to ArcLight Cinemas for being an awesome partner. And I just want to make sure that if anyone is going to be, every movie could use the support. So if you're actually going to push it on social tonight on Twitter or Instagram or anything, if you could tag it with Knives Out and Collider Screenings and ArcLight Cinemas, that would be awesome. Now let's jump into why we get to be here.
God bless you.
I'm just trying to get the good word out. So I have a bunch of questions about the movie, but I have a few what I'm going to term fun questions.
Oh boy!
To throw out some curveballs. What TV show would you love to guest, write, and direct?
You know what? I've been watching. This might be cheating because it's a bygone TV show. I've been watching a ton of old Columbo recently, and oh my God, that would have been. But the people who obviously Spielberg did an early episode of that, but then Ben Gazzara directed an episode of it. Jonathan Demme directed an episode of it. I want a time travel machine, and I want a gig on Columbo. Is what I want.
What movie do you think you've seen the most?
It's a toss-up between Treasure of the Sierra Madre, Topsy Turvy by Mike Leigh, oddly. It's a comfort food movie for me. And what is maybe the third one? Miller's Crossing, probably.
Is there anything that you collect?
No, I'm not a big collector. You know what I do collect? This will shock you. This is nerdy. I collect Infocom games. I don't know if you guys know text adventures, Infocom games like Zork and that kind of stuff. I was really into that when I was a teenager. I lost all of my old games, and I just a few years ago went on eBay and just kind of started collecting the old boxes that they came in and everything. That's it. Yeah, sorry.
No, I think everyone has actually done something like that, gone on eBay and bought something that they had when they were a kid.
Yeah.
What is the last thing you binged watched?
Oh God, besides Columbo, you mean?
Yep.
All the way through? Jeez. Oh my God, I can't remember. I've been doing so much traveling recently. It's been so piecemeal in terms of what I've watched. I just started watching Watchmen. I think it's fantastic. I just watched the first episode of Watchmen. How about that? I'm excited to binge watch that.
Damon did a phenomenal job with that show.
So that first episode is so good, man. It's cool seeing Dawn in it. The Dawnaissance is occurring.
100%. What is the TV? Have you ever watched a TV show all the way through more than once?
Yes, Deadwood, which is a masterpiece. Yeah. Deadwood is. It's hard to oversee, and it was nice because I watched it first years ago, and then I rewatched it recently with my wife, who I didn't expect to be into it, and she was so into it. It made me happy. It's just the writing in that show is just godlike. It's amazing.
My last quote-unquote fun question. Do you remember your first movie or TV show crush?
I'm sure I do. Let me think back. How far back should we go here? I had a big crush. This is a TV show. This is not my first, because this would have been when I was, I don't know how old I was. Absolutely Fabulous, the TV show, the British one. I had a huge crush on Julia Sawalha, who played the nerdy daughter, who played Safi, and I just thought I was like, that's the kind of girl I want to end up with someday, Safi.
Jumping into why I get to talk to you tonight and why everyone's here. When did you know that you wanted to do this?
I had the idea for this about 10 years ago. I had just kind of the very basic, what if this happened and this happened? Wouldn't it be interesting to do a murder mystery where this was kind of the structure of it? I had that about 10 years ago. So I guess it's been about 10 years since I've been kind of chewing on this. But I only sat down to write the script last year. It all happened actually really fast when I sat down to write it.
When you were writing it, did you have the cast in mind, or was it, let me start with that.
No, I've learned not to do that because that's a path to heartbreak. Because inevitably they're not available, even if they're your friends. Inevitably something will come up and it won't happen. So I just write the characters, and then we sit down, and I sit down with my casting director, Mary Verneau, and we start going through it and seeing who's available.
The thing about this is that when you look at the poster and everyone saw the movie tonight, you put together this murderer's row of actors. And what a lot of people don't realize is scheduling is next to impossible. So how the F did you do this?
Well, I'll tell you how I fucking did it, is cast Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig was the first one to sign on. So he's the reason that, and so timeline-wise with this, I mean, I started writing last January of 2018. And we had wrapped the movie by Christmas. So I spent about 6 months writing, and then what happened was Daniel wasn't available, and then he suddenly was because Bond pushed a few months. So it's like he had a couple of months of a window, and we jumped on it. And that also meant, though, from when he said yes, we had 6 weeks until we had to start filming. So that actually, I mean, it was, I guess I can say, it was quite nice that we couldn't get Precious. My poor producer's standing over there. I'm sure it was not nice for him. But one of the ways I think it actually helped us casting-wise was what you're asking about. You know, if you go to famous actors and you say, do you want to do this thing? We're doing it's fall of next year. I think everyone's kind of doing the math in their head, like, oh, what if, a Marvel movie or something comes up? I want to kind of keep my options open. With this, it was literally, are you available right now? Can you come to Boston? And Daniel Craig's in it. And it just started kind of like, and then Michael Shannon was the next one to sign up. And then the question is even better. It's, can you come to Boston right now? Daniel Craig and Michael Shannon are in it. And it just got better and better with each actor, and it snowballed, I guess.
Is it true or false that Chris Evans worked for Dunkin' Donuts?
Well, that makes so much sense because he's from Boston. He was a local hire. He drove to work in the morning. Donkeys, hey, we did have donuts on set every day. I would be shocked if he didn't work at Dunkin' Donuts, so we put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, and everyone from Boston, I'm from Boston. Yeah. Dunkin' is like, it lives in our, it's like in the blood.
It's in the bloodstream, I know, yeah.
So talk a little bit, though, what surprised you about the cast? Because each actor works a little differently. Some might like more takes, some might like less. What is it like when you have a cast like this, trying to sort of corral it all?
I was really nervous because I had never worked with a cast this big before, and all these big names and everything. Kind of as the cast list grew, I grew more and more terrified. And then the truth is, I showed up on set, and it's... Again, I keep apologizing to you guys. It's the boring thing everyone says. Oh, we all got along and had a good time. We did actually all get along and have a good time. It was actually, there was no like movie star egos or anything. Nobody was difficult. It was actually just, it felt a bit like summer camp to shoot. We were at this big mansion in the middle of New England. In between takes, the cast, they wouldn't go back to their trailers and get on the phone with their agents or whatever. They would all go down in the basement rec room of this mansion and all just hang around, like telling each other war stories and like hanging around a pool table. And so it was just, I don't know. But in terms of, yeah, and I think maybe because, because it is an ensemble and because it's a murder mystery where, as an audience, you kind of know what you're sitting down for. And I think as cast members, they kind of were like, okay, we get what this is. So it wasn't like there was a ton of heavy digging to get to the heart of it. Everyone showed up and clicked in pretty easy. And it all went pretty smooth.
What did you learn? You guys must have done a table read.
No, we didn't do a table read, no.
Really?
Yeah, I don't find table reads that useful. We did one for Brick, and it was so disastrous. We almost didn't make the movie. Like, no, that's not true. But it was horrible. It was disastrous. Joe and I were just like sitting in the car together after the table read, looking at each other. I was like, "If you want to leave, I understand." I don't know. Table reads. I guess for something that's like very for like TV, I get it. For comedy stuff, I think I get it. For something like this, especially where the cinematic language of all the cutting with the flashbacks is so intricate to it. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't found what's useful about them yet.
Well, I'm curious, so you get the cast together, and obviously you have a script you're really happy with. Does the script get altered by the casting and the voices that you're now hearing on these characters?
It doesn't get altered in that way. It's not like, oh, we have this actor, they can, we have to write it to their skills or whatever. Mostly because all these actors are so skilled, I feel like they can do whatever you throw at them. What does happen is, obviously it's the nature of the script is kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, so it's not like you can get on set and just start, dicking around or something. You have to kind of stick to the plan. But, because there was, put it this way, like when there were scenes where there was a lot of exposition to be given by characters, or we had to explain something, or the characters had to do something, if the actor couldn't track exactly what was happening in that moment, then I knew the audience probably wouldn't be able to either. And so if an actor came up to me and said, I don't quite understand why I'm doing this, I wouldn't try and just talk them into it. I would always say, okay, let's see if we can simplify it then. And so there was quite a bit of adjusting. Chris Evans was terrific at that, I think, because he's done all the Marvel movies that have so much exposition in them. I think he was used to kind of, he had a very good kind of, bullshit detector in terms of, does this actually track and make sense on a dramatic level in the scene?
How much, when you're writing the script, you said you wrote it for 6 months. How much did it change along the way? Like, I'm curious, so on day one, you're sitting down to write this thing. How much do you know the entire arc? How much can you sort of talk about, because it's all about figuring out where to give information, and there's so many little things.
Yeah, well, with every script I've written, and with this one in particular, I write really structurally. I have to start. I spend the first big chunk of time just working in little notebooks, and all I do is I draw like arcs and split them out into like sequences. I need to basically be able to see the whole plot in my head before I can sit down and actually start writing, or I'll get lost in the weeds. So I plan and plan and plan and plan, and this was like that, only more so. This was even more crucial for me to have the whole thing mapped out. But then you actually get into it, and as you guys who are writers, you get into it, and no matter how much you plan, it's like you plan out your map through the forest, looking at like the map in your cozy living room, and then you get in there and you're actually hacking through the forest, and you figure out stuff doesn't work, and you figure out new paths, and so yeah, it's kind of a mixture, I guess.
I don't want to get into spoilers, but I am curious, was the ending in this film always the ending, or did you have multiple ideas?
No, I rarely have multiple ideas. I'm lucky if I have one. Actually, the real answer is because I approached it in that structural way. I started with a very zoomed back concept. The basic first idea wasn't, oh, what if this person is the killer and kills the person this way and they figure out this way? It wasn't even that. It was the idea of taking a whodunit and putting the engine of a Hitchcock thriller in the middle. So, Hitchcock famously hated whodunits because he thought there were a lot of build-up for one big surprise at the end, which to him was the cheapest coin possible. And to him, suspense is where it's all at in terms of narrative. So the idea, I love whodunits, but I also kind of see where he's coming from. So I thought, well, what if we kind of can take the engine of an empathy-based suspense movie, put that in the middle of a whodunit, but then still have the bookends of a great whodunit and still get all the stuff I love about a whodunit in there. So the idea of how that would work, and I won't go into it because of spoilers, but that was it was that broad actually. It wasn't even thinking about characters or place or time or what happens even. It was just this kind of wonky genre exercise to begin with.
I'm fascinated by the editing process because it's the final rewrite. Talk a little bit about what did you learn in the editing room when you finally started watching all the footage?
I worked with my editors, Bob Doucet, and we've done our last 2 movies together, and he's really, he's incredible, and I started out editing my own stuff. The brick I cut just on my computer in my bedroom. I've always used to having my hands on it. And working with Bob has really taught me kind of the value of a collaborative relationship with an editor. And with this one, it's interesting because it's so intricate, and yet it kind of popped together pretty quick. And we ended up doing the least amount of kind of big picture shuffling of any of the movies we've done together. And it was, it kind of, we did a lot of work to it. It took a lot of refining, and a lot of the devil was in the details of what we reveal when and what we linger on and whose perspective we're in. But the thing as a whole actually, like, it came together as a film really, really quick and kind of stayed that way.
Did you do a lot of friends and family screenings, any test screenings? What did you learn from those?
We did a bunch of friends and family screenings, and that's just like, 8 to 10 people in a little room, and they're all your friends, and if they're, if they have negative, you guys know how it is with friends. I mean, if you have just show stuff that you make to friends of yours, if they, if they don't like it, you feel like the world is over, and if they do like it, you think they're lying to you. So, but in this case, it was very, very useful because just because of the what did you understand when, who did you suspect when, and even just getting information that, oh, this tipped off for people that this was coming too early or too strongly. In that way, it helped a lot. And then we tested it 3 times. We tested it once in Orange County, like a proper a theater like this, a crowd like this, but like randomly recruited with cards and all that stuff. We tested it in Orange County and then twice out in Texas. And the benefit of that for me was really, at that point we had the whole thing pretty dialed in. It was really just encouraging to hear an audience react to it for the first time, and to I don't know. It was the only time I would attach the word fun to a test screening, but it was actually fun hearing like a big crowd react to the humor in the movie for the first time.
When you do test screenings, I've heard from some filmmakers that they'll go in the bathroom and sit in a stall because you'll hear actual, honest feedback.
That's terrifying. Oh my God, that's a really good idea, though. I might use the stall to vomit a couple of times, but that's a very good idea. I'm gonna steal that idea. Yeah.
First cut, how long was it compared to the finished film?
I was terrified because the shooting draft. Ram, do you remember how long the shooting draft was? 125, 130 pages about. Might have been 130. I was bracing myself for like, oh God, we're gonna have a 2-hour and 45-minute first cut. And our first assembly, like the editor's assembly, was like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It was actually, I think because it cut on the screen much faster than having to describe everything on the page, this wasn't a movie where we were like, oh my God, how are we gonna cut this down? There are a couple of really great scenes that we did that ended up on the cutting room floor for pacing. But the movie was never outrageously long, which was a real relief.
How many scenes do you have that were cut out of the film?
There's 2 really good ones. There's a great one with Toni Collette and Daniel that unfortunately we had to lose, but we'll get it in there in the home video release. Not in the movie, but we'll have it as an extra. And then there's another really good one with Rikki Lindholm, who's a fantastic comedian and actress who she's half of a comedy duo called Garfunkel and Oates, and she plays Michael Shannon's wife, like the really nervous, she's blonde. And there's a great scene where we learn why Michael Shannon's wearing a cast on his leg that I really love. But it's just one of those things where it had nothing to do with the scene, just pacing-wise, we ended up slicing it out.
When you remove scenes like that, do you actually call the cast and say,
no? God, you want me to hang out in the bathroom and hear how people hate it? You want me to call the cast and tell them you're just a torture agent, man.
So do people find out, I guess, when they see the film?
And I'll tell you, if someone's going to get cut out of the movie, then you make a call and you do like a courtesy call. But if somebody's in the movie and it still has a great performance in the movie and there's like one scene that got cut out, then you kind of gauge it depending. But all actors, it's so common. Actors are so used to it. It's not like a big heart, maybe it is a big heartbreaker, I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, it goes with the job.
What was the last thing you cut out before picture locking? Meaning like that last little bit.
Yeah, there was no like very last, right before it went out the door or something. There was nothing dramatic like that. I think there was, if anything, we were like sliding stuff back in at the very last minute. The Baby Driver reference, I don't know if that was a good or bad idea, but I was like, yeah, all right, okay, good, thank you. Very last minute, I was like, let's put the Baby Driver back in. So that might have been the last thing, so you're welcome, Edgar.
Are there any other Easter eggs or things you would like people to look out for?
Well, I mean, seeing the movie the second time, there's a lot of fun stuff in terms of stuff we hid in the background with, what actually is happening, kind of when you're not aware that you're even supposed to be looking for it. But that would be telling. This is fun. I don't know if you guys so one of the big references I gave David Crank, our production designer for the inside of the house, is one of my favorite films, the 1970s version of Sleuth with Michael Caine and Laurence Olivier. Yes, give it up for Sleuth. And that, along with Death Trap, were kind of big references for the house, but Sleuth more so. And we actually, those who know the movie Sleuth, there's like a kind of a statue of a drunken sailor, Jolly Jack the Sailor. And we didn't get the statue, but we got a drunken sailor statue in kind of the foyer of the house in reference to Sleuth. So.
It's obviously we all know the title. Was it almost called something else?
No, it was always called Knives Out. I find that, I don't know if you guys find with your stuff, it's like I find anything you do, you either have the title really early or it's a torturous, you can never find it, and you're finally just like, all right, fuck, we'll call it that, okay. But it was, once I heard the Radiohead song, I just kind of filed it away as that's a really cool turn of phrase, that'd be a good murder mystery title.
Are you the type of person that has a lot of unproduced scripts sitting on the desk?
God, no, I wish. I really wish. No, I don't. I finish something and then I kind of sit down and figure out what I want to do next and then work on that, which I guess is maybe, I don't know, maybe that's good because it means whatever I'm doing is the thing it's fresh in terms of it's genuinely the thing that I'm, most excited about sitting down doing next, I guess. I don't know, but God, that would be nice. A drawer full of scripts.
The cast is so incredible in the movie. I'm curious, maybe what surprised you specifically about like a Chris Evans or a Christopher or a Michael, or if you could name some of the people that you worked with and maybe, you know what I mean?
I think so, yeah. I mean, every one of them is so different. But there were no big surprises with anyone. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis is just the coolest person in the world, but that will surprise no one. Jamie is like she's got like a very alpha nerd energy in the coolest way possible. She was like the first one to set every day. And she would just hang out kind of on set and she's in scenes in the movie she wasn't supposed to be in because she was just there. And I was just like, oh, Jamie Lee Curtis is here. Well, I guess she must be in the scene. She must know what she's doing. And I would stick her in. And yeah, what else? I mean, who is really funny is Michael Shannon. Michael Shannon is hilarious. He's stealth funny. He's funnier because you don't expect him to be as funny as he is because he's so intense. He's not really. He's a fun guy, but he's he's really intense. And he's hilarious. That he had there's a line in there where he says I'm not eating one iota of shit, and stuff like that. He would chuck out, and you would just be like, did that just come out of Michael Shannon's mouth? That's amazing. But yeah. And who else? Everybody else was Kay Callan, who plays Great Nana, who is actually 10 years younger than Christopher Plummer. He has a lot of age makeup, and it takes a lot to give a performance that's that nonverbal and that good. I think she did a really good job.
I'm always curious, how many takes do you typically like to do when you're on set?
Just kind of as many as it takes. With this one, it was not many takes because the cast was so dialed in. Everyone clicked in very quickly to what the thing was, and I don't know, I felt there was a benefit to kind of moving briskly and not getting bogged down. And it wasn't like we were, digging heavy duty into any kind of method stuff with it. The cast kind of knew exactly what they were going for, and generally it was 2-3 takes and then moving on. But I've done many more than that if scenes call for it. And in this one it just happened to kind of breeze by really quick.
This is the moment I'm gonna attempt to get you to throw someone under the bus. Who ruined the most takes and why?
There was. Let me think. Yeah, when Anna de Armas, who I haven't gushed about yet, Anna is, before I say why she ruined takes, I'm going to say how amazing and incredible she is. She's, you asked me like who surprised me the most. I think because, all the other actors in this cast, I like, their body of work. They're all movie stars. Anna, I had seen her in Blade Runner. I had watched some other stuff of hers. But really, I just cast her from just meeting her and just, having her read for the part. And she really has to, for her to step into the middle of this cast, like this big name cast, and kind of giving all these big performances, for her to step into the center of that and kind of effectively carry the movie, that with that amount of confidence she has, I just think she's extraordinary. But when she gets giggly, when she gets the giggles, and mostly her and Chris, they would like get giggles, and it would just be over. You'd have to just kind of step away for like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Getting giggles, like something they just start to take and they just start laughing. It's a thing that happens. It's like an infectious giggle thing, and Anna can sometimes get it. No? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Anybody? Yeah, you guys know what I'm saying. Okay, yeah, okay.
You've worked with your cinematographer, Steve, on I think all your films.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the collaboration you guys have, and what is it like? How much are you guys setting up the shots you're going to get before you get on set? How much can you sort of talk about that collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, Steve and I, we met when he was still a senior in high school and I was a freshman in college. We met on a student film set, and we've been making movies ever since. I hope to keep making them with him the rest of my life. You hold on to those relationships when you get them. Steve's amazing. So I board out my movies just even roughly. I will just do a first pass where I just kind of like sketch out visually, just because it helps me to show up with a plan. But then when we get on set, especially the more movies I make, I tend to just kind of let it, I have that as kind of in the back of my head, but then you have to feel out the rehearsal, you have to feel out the space, and then you start getting into it, and very often it becomes a collaboration with Steve in terms of figuring out how to cover a given scene. And the lighting, I don't have a head for lighting, so I can describe to Steve how I want it to feel, I can describe where I want light sources, but meaning like, oh, the light's really coming in the window and the rest of it's dark, or I can give him references. But Steve is the one who really translates that into how it's going to work in the space. I think our biggest kind of existential crisis on this movie was this is the first film we've shot entirely digital. And I'm a big film guy, and that was a real crisis of faith for me. That was like a big discussion, and Steve is a real tech head who, he is a color science guy. And Steve's argument, which, look, he's right, it's hard to argue with, is basically you can, if you as an artist take control over the post process, and you can make that image look however you want it to look. And ceding control over the eventual look by saying that what you shoot on is what delivers the look is untrue and turns you from an artist into a consumer, basically saying the brand I choose is what makes it look the way it looks. The truth is, with imaging technology, because everything goes through a digital post chain at this point, even with film, you're scanning it and doing digital color correction, you have to, if you own that process, you can make it look the way you want. I wanted it to look like film. There were a lot of benefits to shooting digital, and there's exactly one 35 millimeter shot in the movie. There's one shot of Daniel in that last sequence that's shot on 35 film for my birthday, because Steve knew I was heartbroken. I walked onto set, and he had gotten Panavision to ship out like an old 70s blimped camera, like the type they shot like Jaws and Godfather on, and we shot one shot on it, and it really pisses me off that I see the shot coming, I see the other shot on either side of it, and damned if I can, if I can tell the difference. It looks like the movie.
Are you done shooting on film then?
I don't know, man. I can't say those words. That's too heartbreaking. But it's just an entirely, it's almost like a religious thing. It's almost just like, I understand it's an entirely emotional thing, because the truth is I can't argue with the results. I think the movie looks beautiful, and I think I've had diehard film people watch it and just say, oh, I'm so happy you shot on film. Like, I think it does, when Steve does his thing, I think it looks great. And the flip side of that is, there are movies shot on film every year that look like they were shot on digital. It's all about how you handle it in post, basically.
What cameras, this is going to get nerdy, I'm so sorry. What cameras did you
Oh,
decide?
now it's going to get nerdy.
Yeah. What cameras did you decide to use, and what lenses? Because a lot of times people talk about how they'll shoot on digital, but then they'll use these vintage lenses or certain lenses.
Yeah, I mean, we shot with the Alexa, not with like the 65 or anything crazy, just the regular Alexa, and we mostly used prime lenses. I'm trying to think which ones. We used the Primos for this. We used very clean lenses. They were not like funky old like Krasnogorsk camera like lenses or something from like that we got on eBay or something. We used just like really good glass from Panavision, and mostly primes actually. And this is actually, I mean, more interesting than the camera or any of that stuff. This is the first movie since Brick that I've shot 1:8:5 as opposed to widescreen ratio, and that was really interesting. Adjusting back to that framing, I found it really fun actually. Going back to kind of that slightly taller framing for groups of people, it was interesting.
I'm about to open it up to the audience. I just want to be clear before I open it up that we're trying to stay spoiler-free because people are maybe filming and we're trying to keep the spoilers in the room.
Thank you.
But I am curious, every time I speak to a filmmaker, they talk about in the editing room that they'll repeatedly go back to like one scene. Like one scene is the thorn in their side. What was, as long as we were staying spoiler-free, was there a scene that you repeatedly went back to?
There wasn't one that was like, God, why can't... Well, there was one scene that was like, why can't we get this working? God, I don't know if I should tell you guys, though, because now every time you see the scene, you'll be like, oh, yeah, that isn't great. It's dumb, though. It's a really quick scene. It's a scene where Ransom and Marta are kind of figuring out what to do with the ransom note before they go to the burning building. It feels like a nothing scene, but originally it wasn't. Originally it was much longer, I guess, and it wasn't working. And we kind of figured that those scenes usually, the approach is you kind of strip them down and you find exactly what they need to be. Usually if a scene isn't working, it's because it's overridden, and so you, in the cutting room, is kind of figuring out, getting it down to kind of the most aerodynamic version of it.
I will tell you that this light makes it actually, okay, now, oh wait, I can finally see.
I'm blind.
Yes.
I'm blind.
Do we have, does the audience have microphones, or are we just going to sort of scream it?
Oh, we can scream.
Let's do it. So I see a hand right there.
I see some strong lungs in the audience tonight.
Yeah, so I just saw Looper at Alamo on Sunday. Loved it. Loved Last Jedi.
Thanks, man.
And loved this one of my favorite movies this year.
Thank you.
You started writing this right after Last Jedi came out. We all know it was very divisive. There's a lot of morons.
That's it.
Two-part. What kind of pressure did that put you under to write this? And what does it feel like to dunk in all of their faces?
That's a good two-part.
Thank you. I love you. And also, I don't think anyone who doesn't like The Last Jedi is a moron. If anyone's filming this, I don't think that. Everyone has different opinions about movies. And, what felt really good coming into this was honestly like the speed of how fast we did it. Last Jedi, I had the best experience of my life. I'm sure I'll be on my deathbed and be thinking that'll be kind of I don't know, I won't be able to die angry about anything because I will have I've gotten to work in the Star Wars world. But it was 4 years to make one movie, and so it felt really good to come and just like hit this really quick and just do something that we didn't get too precious about. And I don't know, in terms of like, the Jacob character, the Nazi child masturbating in the bathroom, that's not like I don't know if you guys will believe me, it's not an actual specific ding against anything Star Wars. To me, that's just, the whole thing with this movie was, okay, let's take a whodunit and plug it into 2019. Let's make it modern day. And that means, to me, not just giving, Colonel Mustard a cell phone. That means the characters in it are going to be character types who you can only exist in 2019, for better or for very worse. And if you're on the internet in any capacity, this is not a phenomenon that's unique to Star Wars. There are trolls who do this kind of gamified version of trolling, which is ultimately, at the end of the day, kind of silly and boring, and I thought it would be fun to have a laugh at it.
Yeah, with such an all-star legendary cast, was there any hesitation in hands-on directing these people?
Oh yeah, you mean was I scared showing up with all these guys? Yeah, I was shitting my pants. I was really terrified. But they're all fantastic actors, and at the end of the day, that makes your job easy, I guess, because what you're doing fine-tuning, you're not like, oh my God, can we get it? You're showing up and kind of actually doing the work of fine-tuning. And I also, as much as Agatha Christie books were a big inspiration for this, I grew up watching, my favorite Agatha Christie's are the ones where Peter Ustinov plays Poirot. So it's Death on the Nile, Evil Under the Sun. And those movies, I guess, Murder on the Orient Express kind of started out. They're big, they're very pointedly all-star casts. That's one of the pleasures. We're putting on a big show. This is a spectacle. And when we sat down to make this movie, I really consciously wanted to do this. I think I said to Ram, we want an all-star cast with this. It's one of the things, every person who shows up, you should say, ooh, it's that person, you have that reaction, so.
Daniel Craig and Ana de Armas together, do you think that's what cast her in the James Bond movie?
Yeah, and I think I should get a piece, man. I should get a piece of that action. Call Barbara Broccoli. Get on the phone. No, I don't. I don't know. They worked really well together, and Daniel, I'm sure that had something to do with it. But also, I know she told me she had met before Knives Out. She had met Carrie before, and she had met Barbara before, and so I think they had a relationship. But yeah, I'm sure Daniel, having a good time working with her on this didn't hurt. I'm so excited to see her in it, man. It's gonna be fun, and I'm excited to see her. She just played Marilyn Monroe. She just finished shooting in Andrew Dominik's new movie, which is going to be insane. It's going to be amazing. She was showing me camera tests she was doing while we were on set. So I'd be directing her all day as Marta, and then she'd show me her done up as Marilyn Monroe, and I'd be like, "Who are you?" Amazing.
Also, anything that Andrew does should be, when those films come out, it's a national holiday.
Top of the list completely, man. That guy's a beast. Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. Let's go to the left. Wow, I see you right there.
Right here?
Sure.
Was any aspect of this movie based on your own family?
No. No, it actually, my family, I have a really big family. I'm really close to them, and they're nothing like the family in this movie. They're really lovely, amazing people. Mom, I'm looking right in the camera. But I did grow up in a really big family, and anyone who did, the family politics, the family dynamic. My family loves to argue. It's kind of our national pastime in our family is having a good argument. So, and all the tensions in the family and the politics of just being in a big family. So there's nothing specific in this is from my family, but generally I think, just growing up in that kind of loving environment that's also the Game of Thrones a little bit in the most loving way, it definitely informed it.
Yeah, you said you had to shoot the movie pretty quickly once Daniel Craig signed on, and his southern drawl, it seems like it would have taken some time for him to train. Did you know he could do that type of accent?
Yeah, he started training as the instant we hired him, and he worked really intensely with a dialect coach. And I gave him the reference of the historian Shelby Foote to listen to, this deep Mississippi accent. But Daniel's a very trained actor. He's done a lot of theater. I knew that he could click into that accent when he needed to.
This movie was a lot funnier than I originally thought it was going to be. Did you mean, when you were first writing it, for it to be as comedic as,
Yeah.
as it ended up to be? There was a lot of laughs.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I did. I mean, one thing that I wanted to put a lot of humor into it. I wanted it to be really fun. But then also, I had to be really clear when we started making it that it was, because I think people's reference for these things tends to be Clue or Murder by Death, which I love those movies, but I had to be really clear. Hopefully there's a lot of humor in it, but this is not a parody. It was a very fine line in terms of we're doing a murder mystery here. We're not doing a parody of murder mysteries. So.
Balance very well.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
The score was great. Nathan Johnson.
Yeah, my cousin Nathan.
What was the direction that you first gave him for the score?
We talked about sharp strings. So I had him listen to a lot of Grieg and a lot of classical references. This is Nathan's first orchestral score. I'm so proud of him, man. Yeah, did he do a good job? He really did. Yeah.
Have you read Gravity's Rainbow?
Yeah, twice.
Right
Sorry.
Yep.
I really love the way you directed this movie.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I just wanted to know, was there anything that you learned that you didn't know you could direct, or something like that revitalized you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, thank you, first of all. For me, the big lesson in this movie was blocking large groups of actors, and because there were scenes in this that had 8 or 10 people in them, and the more and more that I think that when I was I've been so fat, I think you start out thinking of camera angles in terms of directing and thinking of cool camera angles and camera moves and everything. More and more recently, I think about blocking and staging, what we would call staging. There's been some really great videos recently about how Spielberg is a master of staging his actors, where they're standing in relation to each other, when they move, and then where the camera is in relation to them. And that, you watch Michael Curtiz's movies, he's a master of staging. So yeah, staging large groups of people was kind of the thing that I felt like I got the most practice with in this one.
First of all, just as a huge Breaking Bad fan, Ozymandias is probably one of the most entertaining hours of television you've ever seen.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks. Shout out to Vince.
Speaking of the humor that was hit on in the movie, I was just wondering, is there a story behind that drawn-out donut reference?
Oh, yeah, the donut reference.
I'm not sure if everyone in the back here, is there a story behind the drawn out donut reference?
Yeah, I had wanted I feel like in mysteries, it's kind of a fun trope that the detective always has some kind of nonsense, elaborate kind of metaphor for how his process works with the case or something that doesn't really make sense. And so I wanted to give Benoit one of those. And I wrote it, I almost cut it in the script. I was almost like, it's this donut thing, I don't know, it's kind of silly. And Daniel was like, let me try something with it. And then he went at that donut speech with the fervor of a Pentecostal preacher or something, just fire in his eyes, or watching it being like, I'm really glad I didn't cut the donuts.
With the nature of promoting films nowadays, I'm wondering if you had any control in regarding to the marketing of the movie, especially in regards to spoilers, and how you handled that.
Yeah, Lionsgate has been terrific in terms of involving me and Ram in all the trailers, and we don't cut them or something. They cut them, and then they take feedback from us, especially regarding spoilers. And it's tough. It's a really, really fine line. It's really hard because you do have to kind of sell the movie, but you have to be. I'm very conscious. I'm probably a little oversensitive in terms of what we give away. Now that you guys have seen it, I'll be curious if you watch the trailer to see kind of I don't know whether you think it tips anything. I think out of context from knowing the movie, we do okay with it, but it's always a fine line.
I have a question, from your writing perspective. It was a fun film. Thanks for making it.
Nice one.
After first draft and final draft, what is the process like? What happens? You send it to friends, or I'm curious on that process of.
Yeah. Going from first to final, you mean, during that process of rewriting? Yeah. Yeah, I got a couple trusted friends that I show it to every time. My producer is someone I show it to, and then just writer friends, really. people that you can get that will really be honest with you, because you want brutality in that phase. You don't want brutality, but you need brutality in that phase. And then it's just working it over and over and over again, and just trying to just simplify, and just. But it sounds like you're a writer. It's like the tough balance is always you get notes from people and you realize trying to parse out with a very small sample size what what notes you need to get in there and do changes for, and what notes are, either personal preferences or quirks or how the person was feeling that day. That's the part that I feel like you never quite figure out. You always kind of just got to do your best,
With the prep, with the just 6 weeks of prep, what do you think helped you? What did you focus on the most, or what do you think helped you? You were used to all those years with the other film.
Yeah.
What do you think helped you the most prepping for this in such a short period of time?
Yeah, I think in terms of prepping, it was, I don't think what we focused the most on. We got a little bit of rehearsal time with the actors, but not much. We got to rehearse Anna and Christopher Plummer in that really crucial scene with them, and we got to do a little bit of rehearsing with Daniel and Anna. But mostly it was largely the design. It was the house. It was the set deck and the house. It was the couple builds we had to do, and it was scouting locations and finding locations. Because it was so fast, we kind of just had to do that, the essentials of it, and then a lot of work with Steve on pre-lighting and stuff.
Hi Ryan.
Hey.
One of the things that I love most about your movies is being able to rewatch them over and over and discovering new things every time I watch a film. How many times do you think that watching Knives Out would be a good appropriate amount of times to get a good to get all the things, the layers that you're trying to lay in the storytelling?
I'd say 17 or 18 times. It is a movie that's designed to be watched multiple times. I'll be excited to hear from you how it stacks up. Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. Who came up with the idea of the chair? How did it get built? And where is it now?
Yeah, so the chair is not attached to the big knife thing. The knife thing is kind of like a big industrial barbecue grate with all these knives on it. And I had it written in the script as a religious icon made of knives. And then we got on set and I lined up my first shot. I said, oh, that looks great. And I put the chair in front of it and put the person in the chair. And I said, it's Game of Thrones. Shit. But that's okay. So I like Game of Thrones.
Right there.
Oh, she picked it. She picked that song. I was flipping through with my bullshit of what I thought she should dance to, and she sidles up and she goes, "Just put this on." And I was like, "Okay." So she picked it, and then we had to pay to clear it.
Where did the vomit come from? Was that just you wanted her to have a tell as a story mechanic, or did you read about or know someone that couldn't lie unless they vomit?
No, but if anyone reads about someone who has that condition, let me know, because I want to meet them. Maybe want to meet them. It just came with a storytelling thing of just making life as hard as possible for that character. Take away the one thing, the one tool they have to get out of their situation, and do it kind of in the biggest, splashiest way possible, I guess.
Will Benoit Blanc return?
Oh, bring your families opening weekend and get. No, seriously, if this movie, we'll see how this one does, But Daniel and I had so much fun doing it. If I could get together with him and do a new Benoit Blanc every few years, I would love it. We almost got really cheeky and put at the end of the scroll, Benoit Blanc will return in. We decided not to tempt the fates.
Right over there.
Huge fan of your work, especially
Thanks.
Last Jedi and now Knives Out. So
Oh, thanks,
to
man.
see you working with the great friend Gaz again. Can you talk about what it was like to collaborate with him again? How that came to pass?
Oh man, yeah. So Frank and I, we became good friends working on Last Jedi, and he's just the sweetest man in the world. And I grew up seeing him pop up in little roles in the Blues Brothers, and I was like, you think he'd come down and do it? And I think he at least claimed he hates being on camera, just being on camera. And I couldn't tell if he was just claiming that and he actually loves it, but I don't think so. I think he actually hates it. So it meant so much to me. He was so incredibly kind to come down and do it. I think it just makes me so happy to see him in there.
What was your favorite scene to shoot?
Favorite scene to shoot? That's a tough one. They're so different. I really love the ones where the whole family's together, just because the energy on set, when you have all those actors yelling at each other, even though it was kind of laborious with all the coverage, the energy in the room, it's just, it's pretty cool.
Hi, can you tell me about why you decided to give Harlan a Windows XP computer for that scene?
Yeah, I told them give him apologies to anyone who has a Windows XP computer. Give him the shittiest laptop you can find. It's because I give you the laptop that my grandfather would have, basically, right now. So yeah.
So you said that the writing process and the creation process was very quick. At what point did you realize that you wanted to incorporate like the Latinx sort of storyline in that for that community and like the current political climate?
Yeah. So the idea that she was an immigrant and the idea of that tying in thematically to like the shape of the whole thing, that I had actually had for a while. That actually predated like the election. Even that had been something that had been an integral part of it. But then, of course, with the last few years, you know, that really juiced it all and made it just feel even more, you know. I don't know, even motivated me even more to just be more and more explicit. And of course, the stuff that's very explicit about it, we can do that because it all happened so fast, you know. And even then, when I was writing it, I was, you know, God, it would have been lovely if some of those specific stuff had been dated and we had to cut it out. But unfortunately, you know.
The actor who plays Jamie Lee Curtis's husband.
Yeah.
The scene when they're talking about immigration and things like that, he's handing her a plate.
Yeah.
As he's having that speech.
Yeah, he is.
Was that an actor's choice, or did you have that written?
That was Don Johnson. Yeah. He did it in one take, and right after we called cut, everyone was just like looking like, "Did you just do that? That's amazing." And we had two cameras rolling. One interesting little editing thing. At one point, because we have like a more frontal shot of it where you see her take it, and we cut to that, and then we realized at some point it was much funnier if we were on kind of a weird side angle where it's almost incidental to the shot. And humor-wise, it was one of those strange things in the edit room. We found it worked much better if we didn't draw attention to it. So.
I really liked the movie, and also in the beginning when Mr. Blank is pressing the piano key.
Yeah.
Why did he do that?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad that you liked it. I wanted to hold off the point where he enters the conversation. So I wanted to just to kind of like hold him back as this mysterious figure. And I thought, okay, well, maybe there's a logic to it. Like he's worked out this code with Detective Elliot where like when he hits the piano key, he's supposed to ask a certain question, and they have this thing going on. Mostly, though, I just wanted it to be kind of weird. I wanted you to just be leaning forward and saying, wait, who is that guy? So that when he finally enters, you've been kind of leaning forward like, okay, we finally get to meet this guy.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite movie of the year so far?
Oh, God, it's been a great year for movies. God, I mean, you know, Parasite is hard to beat. I loved Uncut Gems, The Lighthouse. I love there's a little movie that came and went really quickly, but The Last Black Man in San Francisco. I don't know if anyone got to see that. I thought the movie was gorgeous. The Irishman. Marriage Story. Yeah, I will stop. So no, I'm going to have a hard time making even my top 10 at the end of this year. Yeah.
I want to interject real quick and say I've been doing this for a long time, and this year has been unbelievable.
We're in a good year, guys. Yeah, soak it up. Get out there and see some movies. Yeah,
it's been unbelievable.
I got a feeling this crowd's seen most of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, this is a movie called Knives Out.
So Joseph Gordon-Levitt appears in a lot of your movies, and I missed him in this one, but I noticed he's in the credits. Can you talk about like, your relationship with him and how you decide, where he fits in your movie?
Yeah. So Joe Gordon-Levitt, he is Detective Hard Rock. You guys catch where he's the voice on the iPad on the cop thing at the beginning. He's like, we have the nanny cam footage. That's Joe doing his best David Caruso. It's been a couple movies now where I've had to, because I need Joe in every movie I do, and it's been a couple movies now where I've had to get him in as a voice, and I'm sick of it. I want him in front of the camera. So hopefully next time it'll work out. Yeah.
On that note, I'm just going to say, and I mean this sincerely, a huge thank you to Rian Johnson for being here.
Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome.
So,
and thank you, Steve, for doing this.
I just want to remind everybody that, every movie, no matter how good it is, can always use the love on social, because social is really important. So if you enjoyed the movie, please talk about it. #Knives Out, or is it Knives Out Movie?
I think it's just Knives Out. And if you're hanging out on Thanksgiving and you're sick of your terrible family, drag them to see this terrible family, because at least they're funny.
Yeah, and again, if any of you guys are tweeting about this tonight, if you hashtag Collider Screening, or Collider Screenings, plural. Sorry, Dorian. Collider Screenings, and I will retweet and embed and all that stuff. But a huge thank you to Lionsgate and ArcLight and everybody for being here tonight.
Thank you guys so much.